Now it says in Genesis 1:27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. So what we're seeing here is something very basic, but I think it's something that's really being ignored today. That God created man in his own image. First of all, God created man in his own image. He created us a certain way to fulfill a certain function. He created male and he created female. Now, there was no other gender mentioned. No other gender. He didn't create a crossbreed. He didn't create a she-male. He didn't create a guy who has a male tendencies in the morning but female tendencies in the afternoon, and sometimes he feels like a she-male. Or, he didn't create a third gender. He created male and female. Genesis 2:24 says, Genesis 2:24, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. God created Eve as a helpmate for Adam. God created Eve in a sense to quench the loneliness of what it would have been like to just be Adam without a helpmate. And I believe God, when Adam saw Eve, he was probably like, wow. Who's this? And Eve was probably like, who's this, right? But they two shall be one flesh. Now, at the end of Ephesians 5:30, it says, and if you turn there in time, I'll just get you to turn there. Ephesians 5:30. Ephesians 5:30 says, for we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. Whose body? Jesus Christ. Of God. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. And of course, the relationship between a husband and a wife, it's got to probably be, it's a challenge for everybody. It talks about how the husband is supposed to love the wife, the wife is supposed to submit to the husband. But this is a picture, just as Christ is the head of the church, so is the man the head of the husband. And as we can actually go there, we're going to actually take a look at the verses. Ephesians 5:25, it says, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might... Ephesians 5:22. Ephesians 5:22, it says, Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Who's the head of the church? Christ is the head of the church. Who's the head of the wife? The husband is the head of the wife. But to give an example is that as Christ was the head of the church, so is the husband be the head of the wife. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be their own husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present him to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hateth his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. I believe what he's saying is the relationship between a husband and a wife. The husband is supposed to be the head of the wife. The wife is supposed to submit themselves to the husband, just like the church is supposed to be submitted to the Word of God. Christ has loved the church so much that he died for it. A man is supposed to love his wife so much that he would die for her. And the marriage relationship is something that's forever. That's how God designed it. What God had joined, let no man part asunder. God had created the ultimate relationship. When God created Eve for Adam, He created a helpmate, someone that they would be one flesh. Just like Jesus will never leave us nor forsake us. Well, Jesus will never leave us nor forsake us. When we're born again, we know that we can never lose our salvation. And the husband and wife are supposed to stay together forever. And that relationship is supposed to be a model. Just like as Christ is the head of the church. And as it says here, this is a great mystery. But I speak concerning Christ and the church. What I believe is comparing that husband-wife relationship to the relationship of Christ and the church. And this is a divine, this is a God-ordained relationship. Most people want to be married. Most people, when they're young, how many people when they're young are like, I can't wait till I'm married. I'm out of my house and I'm married. Sister June put up her hand. Brother Mike is like, no man, I'm an independent. I'm an independent man. I don't need but I was like, I can't wait till the day I'm married. I want to be married. I want to have a wife. Now, when I was going to have a wife, do you think I wanted a wife that was going to leave me? No. Do you think you wanted to have that perfect relationship? But we see that relationship under attack today, more than ever. That relationship is under attack, and it's under attack by a sodomite agenda. It's under attack by the LGBTQ or whatever they want to call it. That whole thing, this whole stuff is all connected. The devil has a master plan. I believe that the devil is using the lesbian, the gay, the transgender movement to destabilize families, to make people not want to have families. I believe that if when you think of the relationship, anyway, I'll get into some more of this stuff later, but when you think about what's going on today, we're inundated now. We're inundated with the gay pride stuff. We're inundated with the flags are everywhere. I believe Julia had it on a there was a bag of cookies or something that had the flag on it, right? What's it called? Candy? Skittles Pride Edition. I mean, it's just so in our face right now. So the question becomes, let's just get back to the basics. What does the Bible say about Sodom? What does the Bible say about relationships? A man with a man, or a woman with a woman. What does the Bible say about it? Now, I know we're going to go back to the basics, but sometimes we got to go back to the basics. Leviticus 18:22. Leviticus 18:22. Leviticus 18:22, it says, "Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination." Here he's likened that act, an act of assault, a man on man, as an abomination. Abomination is a pretty serious word. Abomination this is not just this light sin. This is an abomination in God's eyes. Leviticus 20:13. Leviticus 20:13, it says, "If a man also lie with mankind, as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them." Here we get, of course, both of it is talking about the same thing. It's reiterating that if a man lies with mankind as he also lies with a woman, he's committed an abomination. Abomination. They shall surely they shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Now this, of course, the Bible talks about, whosoever curseth his mother and father shall surely die to death. God put the death penalty on a lot of sins in the Bible. And today, if they were going to actually follow all the things that the Bible says need the death penalty, we're killing a lot of people. I mean, let's face it, and this is not something we ought to do today. I don't even think it's something, this is not something that should be done today. But God just had so much disgust with this sin that he called it, not many sins that God calls an abomination. This is a serious thing. This is an abomination. It says in 1 Kings 14:24, you don't have to go there. It says, "And there were also Sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord cast out before the children of Israel." Deuteronomy 13:23-17, it says, "There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel." So when we think about these churches that endorse the so-called pride movement, these are not churches. I mean, I'll be honest, I could stomach a little bit of false doctrine and say no church is perfect. But when you clearly say that this is okay, you are completely disregarding God's word. There is no way that you could possibly have that error unless you're led by the devil. There is no way. You cannot look at the Bible and see what it just says there about just those few verses alone and say that it is okay for a man to be with a man or a woman to be with a woman. No, it's not. God says it's an abomination. Now, one way to look at some things, to look at the first mention of a certain thing in the Bible tells us a lot about that doctrine, or about that type, basically about that doctrine. If you turn your Bibles to Genesis 19, Genesis 19. Genesis 19:1. Genesis 19:1. And it says, "And there came two angels to Sodom at even. And Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold, my Lord, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet. And you shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and he entered into their house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they laid..." Now, we're just going to stop there for a second. These angels had come to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. The interesting thing about this is these men that came to Lot, they were angels. They were angels. Imagine an angel, right? Holy. There are probably some angels that aren't so perfect, but I think holy is big of an angel. And these angels came to Lot. And it says, they entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and they did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But it says, but before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, and all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, Where are the men which came in to thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. Now, what's interesting, I believe that they saw these men. They saw these angels. They saw him go into Lot's house. And here we say that the whole city, it says that here, it says that even the men of Sodom, before the men of the city, even the men of Sodom compassed the house round, both old and young, and all the people from every quarter. Tons of people had come to Lot's house where these angels were. Tons of people, old, young, from every quarter. And they said, bring these men out that we may know them. Now, you're asking, in our language today, what does know them mean? You might be asking that question. And this is probably under attack. What were they meaning? Now, if you go to Genesis 4, verse 1. Genesis 4:1. It says, And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain. I don't need to get into all the details. You can gotta see that. Genesis 4:17. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. We see this. Knowing, meaning having a relationship, a physical relationship that would allow a kid to happen. We see it here twice. Genesis 4:25. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. Matthew 1:24, and you don't have to turn there, says, Then Joseph, being raised up from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord had bidden him, and took unto him his wife. And he knew her not till she had brought forth her firstborn son. He knew her not till she brought forth her firstborn son. Now, what is he talking about? He knew her. They hung out together. They spent time together. He's talking about that relationship. So what these men did, I mean, can imagine this scenario. These angels come in, these holy men of God, and everybody in the city says, hey, bring them out. We want to know them. This is wickedness. This is wickedness, and this is even beyond, in a sense, where we are today. But what I believe that they saw something. They saw something holy. They saw something good. They saw something just. They saw something pure, and they wanted to defile that. They wanted to hurt that. They wanted to make something good. They wanted to make it dirty. They wanted to make it wicked. Because they were wicked. And that is what sodomy is. God says that sodomy is an abomination. God says that, hey, that those people deserve to die for that act. Why is it an abomination? It is against the whole concept of a man loving a woman. That's how God designed it. The whole concept of making that twisted and reversing that order and not doing it, God, that's an abomination. God does not like that. God does not want that. God hates that. Now, Genesis 19:6, it says, and Lot went out, just backtrack, not Genesis 19:15, and they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray ye, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters, which have not known man. There we go, the eye concept again of known, which have not known man. He knows what they're getting at. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. He's saying, hey, he's trying to appease them with daughters. He's trying to appease Noah. I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, what is Noah thinking here? What is Lot thinking? That he's going to give his daughters that were virgins and just give them away. He says, don't touch these angels. Hey, but take my daughters. I don't know what he's thinking, but he was trying to, in a sense, appease them. They couldn't be appeased. They couldn't be appeased because those people who want to do wickedly, they don't want to just do wicked. They want to do beyond wicked. They want to do what's the most wicked thing that you can do. Their desire is not just to commit fornication. But when people get so wicked, when people go down that path that's darker and darker, they want to get into more and more sin. And it says, and Lot went out at the door unto them and shut the door after them and said, I pray you, brethren, Genesis 19:9. And he said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came out into sojourn, and he will be a judge. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. Now, I think what I want you look at, the nature of these people. The nature of these people. and I guess I don't have the stat exactly, right? They come in just generalize the stat. But I have read somewhere that with people who were gay or sodomites, under 20 years old, and they had about 37% of them had an abusive relationship with somebody older than them, another man. These men who were doing these types of things, this was a nature of a bully. This was a nature of somebody who wanted to inflict hurt. How many people have heard, of the fact that most of the people high up in the Illuminati, in the secret societies, the Freemasons, that they're all sodomites? Almost all of them. That's all over the place. It's rampant. It's been hidden, now it's being brought to light. And I've heard testimonies of a guy who was a kid. I don't know if I told this story yet, but hopefully I didn't. A guy who was a kid, he was really, they went in, these people would go in, look for very smart kids, bright people to take them into a good school and try to, cultivate that genius that they had. And this man he was molested by another man. And he was brought up high. He got high to government. And his wife came and gave a testimony. And he was being basically raped by other men. And this is the type of stuff that was going on up high. And this is the nature of sodomy at its worst. I'm not saying everybody's like this, but this is the nature. It is a nature. It's a wicked nature. Now, going back to what we read. Now, of course, we have a similar scenario, and we're not going to go over it, in Judges 19. In Judges 19, we have a very similar scenario. You don't have to go there, but Judges 19, you have another scenario where the exact same thing happens, where there's a man sojourning with his servant. He looks for a place to stay, almost like a photograph, almost a very, very similar story. And the men want him. They want to take him. And the man he stays with tries to appease him, and eventually he gets his concubine, but they wanted to rape him. This is unbelievable. This stuff is going on today, but it's going on behind closed doors. And it's not heard of as much as it should be. But it is out there. And if you do the research, you will find that it's true. And the sodomy is in the highest levels of government. It's in the highest level of businesses. And it is, there's more to it than that. Now we're going to go to Romans 1:18 as we review the verses that Brother Mike had read. And it says, in Romans 1:18, it says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of man who hold the truth in unrighteousness." What I was saying, that God's wrath is reserved for them that hold the truth in unrighteousness. Those people who love unrighteousness, God's wrath is against those people. Those people who put unrighteousness on a high pedestal, God has wrath prepared for those people. God will judge those people. As Brother Harvey said something very interesting during his Bible study. I don't know if I get to quote it verbatim here. He's saying, is God always loving if he sent people to hell? No, he's not. God's a loving God, but God's wrath is reserved for those people who hold the truth in unrighteousness. God will judge those people who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Why? Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them. For God hath showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they're without excuse. Everybody can see God by his creation, can see God by what he's done, that he's created every one of us. Every child who's born, I believe, is born pure. And if nurtured the right way, if nurtured properly, if brought up in the right environment to love God, they will love God. everybody knows deep down in their heart that there is a God. And everybody who look for the truth will know that that God is Jesus Christ. Now it says that in Romans 1:21, it says, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like the corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. So when they're saying that when people know God, they glorify him not as God. Everybody gets to a point where they can know God, they know he exists, but they refuse, they glorify him not as God. They come to the point where, hey, everyone can know God exists, but I believe you have to get to that point where you say, I believe everybody can see that there's a God, knows there's a God. God was not the judge of the earth to be right. Well, that question was asked, that question that Abraham asked to God. I believe the answer is, yes, he will. And I believe he's made it clear to everybody that there is a God, but because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like the corruptible man and birds, four-footed beasts, and creeping things. They refused to acknowledge God. They refused to acknowledge God, and they wanted to acknowledge something else. They wanted to acknowledge. They wanted their own God. They wanted their own God. They wanted to be their own God, or they wanted a different God. It says, wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust in our hearts to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Of course, and this is for this cause, God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use against that which is nature. So when you see these churches and they don't have a problem with the sodomite movement, that their God wasn't Jesus. Their God wasn't Jesus. That's not the same Jesus. That's not the same Jesus. And I believe we've had people visit this church here. I heard some comments a little soft about the sodomites. Not many people. There's some. I'm thinking of one person. Anyway, it's not important. But we're not going to be soft on that in this church. We're making it known, right? Some people just need to be taught a bit. Some people just need to show from the Bible, hey, well, the Bible says it's wrong. Here's the verses. What's that say? All you have to do is show them, hey, what's this say about it? What does Leviticus 18:22 say about it? What does Leviticus 20:13 say about it? So what does that not true? And that should be enough to convince anybody. But the world we live in today, they don't see that. They don't believe God. They moved away from God, and now we see all hell in a sense breaking loose. Now because when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. And God gave them up. For this cause, God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. Likewise also the man, leaving the natural use of the woman, burden their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their which was meet. Even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not convenient. And I believe it's saying that these people who go so far down the wrong road and denying God, denying that a man should be with a woman, denying that, God can give them over to that reprobate mind, that they would actually do these things that are unthinkable. Now, let me get this straight. There's forgiveness. There's forgiveness there for everybody. There's forgiveness I don't believe these people are done away with. I don't believe that there's no hope for these people. I believe there is hope for these people. I believe that they can be saved just like anybody. But the bottom line is, we're living in a world today that has gone so far down the wrong path. Now we see, if you turn your Bibles to Jude 1:7, Jude 1:7. And it says in Jude 1:7, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. God hated the sin so much of Sodom and Gomorrah that they suffered the vengeance of eternal fire. If you could turn your Bibles to 1 Kings 15:11, 1 Kings 15:11. And it says in 1 Kings 15:11, and Asa did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, as did David his father. And he took away the Sodomites out of the land and removed all the idols that his father had made. Saint Asa took the Sodomites out of the land. He was following, the context here is that Asa was doing right. The context here was that this was the right thing to do. In 2 Kings 2:46 it says, and all the remnant of the Sodomites which remained in the days of his father Asa, this is talking about Jehoshaphat, he took out of the land. Jehoshaphat did the same thing. 2 Kings 2:37, it says, and he brake down the house of the Sodomites that were by the house of the Lord, where the women wove their hangings for the grove. This was in Josiah. When Josiah was in his tirade, when Josiah was cleaning up Jerusalem, he broke down the houses of the Sodomites, which were by the grove. So when these things were done, when these kings had seen what was going on, when these kings had seen what the Sodomites were doing, they wanted to take action. They wanted to get them out of the land. They did not want this to be. God said that it should be no sodomite of the children of Israel. This is a serious thing. Now, I believe that the sodomite movement, I believe that, I was reading, I was ever heard of Henry Mackay. I don't know, he's a writer on the internet. He's actually, I don't know if he's really saved, but he's got some really good stuff that I actually was reading before I got saved. And basically he's talking about saying that the whole reason, in a sense, for the sodomite movement, in a sense, was like an attack on the family. The whole point is to have an attack on the family. And that of course, obviously, sodomites don't get married. But he's saying that, in a sense, that the actions of what's going on today with people who aren't even sodomites, the behavior, the indiscriminate behavior, I don't have to spell 2 and 2, it's sodomite in nature. In a sense that you look at sodomites, they will have many partners. Probably everyone's heard statistics that it's not like they're having one partner all their life, but they're having tons of partners. How many people heard of that show, Queer as Folk? Has anyone watched it ever before we weren't saved? I watched it when I wasn't saved. How many times did you watch it?
What?
How many times? Several times, or?
Whenever it was on.
Yeah, you watched it, right?
It was interesting. But
Now,
I didn't even have DVDs.
Yeah, the DVDs.
movie.
The show.
TV show.
Yeah, TV show.
Yeah, I watched.
Yeah, so now these.
I thought it was Square Eye for the Straight guy we're talking about.
What's that? Oh, no, yeah, the show, Queer as Folk. And that was actually filmed down on Church Street.
Yeah.
I don't know if the show's still on anymore.
No, thank God.
Now, this show, would you say it was somewhat accurate? I think it's safe to say this show is somewhat accurate. I believe it was probably put together by people who are queer.
Yeah.
And they had a dance club in that show. And under the dance club, they would have this room they go to. And they would have indiscriminate relationships with other men. not one, not two. It's just total indiscriminate relationships with other men. This, this is the behavior in a sense. I believe that, now something interesting about, have you heard of Hugh Hefner? Yeah. Hugh Hefner, who I believe is the founder of Playboy magazine. And I believe it came out, it's very popular, right? And I think it maybe came out in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now, this is what I read about from Henry Macau, his article on Save the Males, which talks about a lot of really great stuff about the New World Order, about the sodomite agenda, about, this guy's really knows what he's talking about. Whether I don't think he's saved, to be honest with you, but he really knows what he's talking about. He's talking about an attack on Judeo-Christian culture. And that we have an attack going on here this sodomite stuff was built in to destroy our society. And I think that I heard that even in China, that they don't really, this is not normal. It's not a normal behavior. And it hasn't really built and got to that yet. Pong, would you be able to maybe take a look at that after? Yeah. Now, it says about Hugh Hefner. Hugh Hefner, who died last September, now this was written last year, paid a bevy of whores $2,000 a week to be his girlfriends and I'm just gonna try and translate, and have relations with them every Wednesday and Friday. He used Viagra and watched male gay porn. So this whole thing, I believe when people start to get into all this, pornography, when people get into all this indiscriminate relationships, I believe look what it leads to. Look what the nature of what it's leading to. Because I believe that the sodomite agenda is to divorce that relationship that God wanted us to have with our wife, to divorce love from that relationship and make it, that an end of itself. To become these people who are becoming like animals. And they're not realizing the sanctity of that relationship. And they're really just completely and outrightly rebelling against that. And that's why it's so wrong. Because God had that relationship. The whole point of a man and a wife, a husband and a wife, that is, if let's say it's followed the way it should be followed, and we all fall short, right? The husbands many times fall short of loving their wives the way they should, and the wives also fall short of giving them the honor to the husbands the way they should. But we do our best. But that is the relationship that God intends us to have. It's a picture of Christ in the church. And this whole thing, this whole sodomite agenda is attack against that. And if you cannot have a strong family unit, you will have a society that is just fragmented, that is just scattered. And these people who get into the whole movement of trying to promote sodomy, these people don't have good relationships with people. They have partner after partner after partner. There's an attack on today, and even in saying that marriage isn't good. That men that you don't want to get married and have a family. That's not manly. That's not masculine. You should go out and sow your wild oats. But that will never give you the satisfaction. That is never the way that God intended it. God intended us to be male and female, just like Adam and Eve, to have that loving relationship, to raise a family based on that loving relationship. But the whole movement today is to attack on that relationship because it knows that if it can get people not to be married, not to stay married, and to go out and be. And now I read some statistics years and years ago about saying that about 2% of people on one site, about 2012, about 2% of people were saying that said that they were homosexual. And now recent statistics are saying 5. Now, people might say, oh, that's because it's accepted now. Well, I think it's because they're being brainwashed. And we have what we're going on is a society where people aren't going to want to be married. Where if they're not a sodomite, they're going to be having indiscriminate relationships. There is going to be no solid relationships. There will be no solid family units. And we're going to have people who are walking down the darkest path. And what the devil is trying to do is trying to create a society of animals. A society of men and children without souls, without Jesus. But what they need is Christ. What they need is Christ. And people say, well, you're preaching hate. You're preaching that people shouldn't be like that. And the problem is that there are some churches out there who will say that you should kill these people. And they need to be put to death, and there's no hope for them. And what they do is they instead of having people know, instead of having these people realize that when we say that they shouldn't do that, what they actually need is Jesus, what they actually need is a Savior, that what Jesus can give them is so much better than that pleasure that they're getting from that sin, and that He can change them, that He can make them a new man, that He can give them something better, that there's something better in store, that there's peace in store, that there's solid relationships in store, relationships where there's love, relationship where there's commitment. It's just that the commitment that God gives to us as born-again Christians is knowing that no matter what we do, no matter how we fall, no matter what happens, He will still take us to heaven because we are His children. And that is the relationship of a husband and wife is supposed to have. That no matter what we do to each other, no matter what we do wrong, that we are to forgive each other and to love each other and get back on track. And that's what's under attack. That's what these people knew. These people, we all know somebody, right? Does anyone know anyone who's a sodomite or a lesbian? We all do. If they really were open, if they were really open to the Bible and to the plan of salvation and to being born again, being saved, they would never want what they got right now. They would want Jesus. They would want the Bible. They would want God. They would drop it in a heartbeat. And that's why we got to preach the truth, but we got to preach it in love. We can't say, hey, some people are out there saying, hey, you need to take their lives. These other churches, they take a hard stand against sodomy. I love a hard stand against it because it's wicked and it's destroying our culture. But they go so far as to say they need to put to death and they can't be saved. That is totally wrong. And that is playing into the devil's plans. That is not God. That is playing into the devil's plans, divide and conquer, and he's going to use that group to accomplish trying to get the Bible outlawed. And I know a lot of people who believe that, love them, they're wrong. And it's not of God. But we got to watch it. Because the thing is, I'm going to close here, get ready to close here. In 1 Peter, 2 Peter 2:6, if you can turn your Bibles to 2 Peter 2:6. And it says, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemn them with an overthrow, making them an example unto those that after should live ungodly, and deliver just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. It's saying that Lot was vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. And today, more than ever, we are vexed with that filthy conversation of the wicked. We are vexed by the things that we see. There's a desensitization going on in place right now. Even in my own mind, I can feel it. And I can feel it hurting. That the fact that this is thrown in our face time and time and time again, I'm getting vexed with that filthy conversation of the wicked. It's trying to get us to accept it. Trying to get us to think it's not so bad anymore. Regarding Lot, for that righteous man dwelling among them, in seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. The Lord knoweth how to deliver the ungodly. The godly out of temptations is reserved the unjust unto the day of judgment to be punished. So, our souls have been vexed by this. And some people are like, why preach the whole sermon on this? I believe we're being impacted. But we got to realize that, hey, this is wrong. And no matter how much they throw it in our face, no matter how much they try to make it seem like it's normal, it's not normal. And it's against God. We got to realize we need God more than ever to purify ourselves in this world and to try to stay away as far. Wouldn't even want to go to that parade. I don't want to even be anywhere near. I don't want to vex my soul with that. And let's pray that God would take care and do something in Toronto to change it.